Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz guitarist and singer Todd Clouser. Talking to Neon Jazz from his home of Mexico City, Mexico, this Minneapolis native is living the music dream. He just released 2016's Psychmonde with his band called A Love Electric on the cool Royal Potato Family label. He grew up digging Jimi Hendrix, the Grateful Dead, and that 1970s rock era. His band has gotten praise from critics and fans of rock, jazz, and experimental music. They're all mixed up in there. He spoke about his career, the band, and many more things. So please dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, Todd, thank you for taking some time to speak with us here at Neon Jazz from beautiful Mexico.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Right on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start off here. I know A Love Electric, you have your new 2016 album, Psychmonde. Give me an idea of what's going on with you and the band lately, just kind of a snapshot in your own words.
We're touring a lot. Yeah, we have this new record called Psychmonde. It's came out on Rope It Open. It's kind of a fake rock record. There's still some jazz in there. Yeah, we're touring a lot. We do these kind of wild sort of altruistic community-based tours. We just did one through Central America, from Costa Rica up to kind of northern Mexico, all by land. So we work with communities, and we obviously play concerts. So yeah, a lot of time on the road.
Why are you in Mexico? I'm curious. What kind of brought this about? Before I get kind of the alpha of your life, I'm curious, in the hyper-present, why you're in Mexico. Why is that home base?
Really for this band. I met these two guys. Hernan Hetched is the drummer, and Aaron Cruz is the bass player in this band, A Love Electric. And I met them some years ago and started this band, and it started to work, and it's kind of what I always wanted to do. So it just became the place for me to be. But yeah, some years ago, I wanted a big change. I'm from Minneapolis, and I got a teaching job, music teaching job in Baja, in Los Cabos. And there's a jazz club there, and I was playing almost nightly, and I was teaching the day. And that's what originally brought me to Mexico, and then I started to meet people, meet other musicians.
So let me ask you about growing up in Minneapolis. What was it about your childhood that kind of fostered this love of jazz that you've accumulated?
Yeah, I think it was, I have music-loving parents. I don't come from a family of musicians, but I grew up hearing lots of kind of funk and soul music, Motown music. My mom's a big Motown fan. I fell in love with music in general at a kind of very young age, and then my dad would take me to a lot of concerts, and we'd go to, I can remember going to Booker T shows, and I don't know, I started to kind of investigate a little bit about, music for myself, and once I discovered kind of the world of improvisation, I discovered through rock, kind of a lot of us, I think, I discovered through Jimi Hendrix and Grateful Dead and these sorts of bands. I started to, look into jazz, improvisation, and then heavier into jazz music.
So I guess this next question is probably going to be answered pretty quick. Why was it because of Hendrix and Garcia that you picked the guitar?
I think so. I think before I had the guitar before I listened to them, but I grew up in the '90s in the U.S. It's like there was MTV and the guitar was cool and all that. The first time I held a guitar and I had my dad bought me an electric guitar, and I could just make noise on it. I was very timid, and all of us would go through a lot of things growing up. The guitar really gave me a way to express myself and express. I feel like at first it was frustration that came out. That I was able to express. There's still a lot of frustration I think comes out, but the guitar gave me a voice and something to express that the depth, the heaviness of what I was feeling.
Give me an idea, growing up with the music and the albums you listened to, what music or album really swayed you and got you kind of hooked into the music serum, so to speak?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think definitely, because we mentioned the End of Gypsies, Hendrix album, and in that sort of, that's a big record for me, live Hendrix stuff. And then I guess in jazz, once I started to get heavier into jazz, Monk records. Straight No Chaser is one that I've had it on vinyl, LP, and I remember listening to Straight No Chaser for the first time and being able to sing the melodies right away. And I really fell in love with that part of jazz, that part of Monk and jazz. A lot of when I was studying jazz, I didn't love a lot of tunes that you're supposed to study at first, all the things you are and these sorts of things. But then once I found Monk, it's specifically that record, Straight No Chaser. It was like, oh, I can sing these tunes. I love the tunes. They're kind of repeat bad, but there's a twist to them and something, a personality that I really fell in love with. So, yeah, those would be a couple of big records. And then, I listened to some ECM records outside of jazz. Listened to Brian Eno records. The discrete music record was a big one for me. So a lot of all over the place, I think.
Right on. So let me get an idea of your education. When you got out of high school, did you go to college, or what was your educational journey after that?
I did. I kind of ran around for a couple of years. I played in bands and kind of was in a lot of bands for a couple of years, and then I ended up at Berkeley in Boston.
So in a formal educational environment, what did they teach you? What did you learn? And, I mean, obviously the classroom is the world, especially as Phil Woods always talked about, but what in the classroom did you get from your music that helped you so much today?
Well, that's a really good question. It's interesting. It's always kind of, hard to know and hard to balance, like, artistic inspiration versus formal training and what's where you find your artistic voice versus that. But I think, looking back, I think studying there at Berkeley gave me a lot of tools that have been very useful to me, just music notation, writing charts, arranging, being able to get more of the stuff that I was hearing onto the page and being able to communicate that with other musicians has been something that's been invaluable to me, especially now being in different spots in the world, different languages, songs, sort of stuff. So I think that was a lot of it, and a lot of harmony, a lot of these concepts I really liked. I was still at that point, I was very timid and socially more socially awkward than I am now, I think, but I wasn't like a big networker in college. A lot of people use that at Berkeley for that sort of thing. But I was really there to, I think, kind of absorb and get a lot of these tools that then I was going to need. And then, as you say, I mean, when I left college, I definitely wasn't ready to go out and play and be sharing my music. I did it anyway, but I've learned out playing is what I've done. I learned out playing with other musicians, and there were some years where I was playing pretty much daily, playing gigs daily.
So you've already mentioned Jimi Hendrix. You mentioned the Grateful Dead, and it's very clear in your biography that the '70s rock era was a big deal. I'm a product of probably the same time period as you, of growing up with music, but I'm curious, why did you lean so much on the '70s rock, kind of in the way that you approach music?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I mean, there was something that was attractive to me. I think also, there was some sort of, although I was born in '81, so I wasn't around this sort of time, but there was there's a social context and this sort of spirit to some of that music that felt like it was more important than just the music or the image or these sorts of things, It felt like there was something to be said, and there was this sort of communal aspect, this sort of like mobilizing spirit to that music that was really attractive to me. The same I could find in lots of some early jazz or blues, Delta blues music. There was it felt real, and like it was about something real and something really really human. And I didn't necessarily find that with a lot of what might be on the radio in the '90s and that sort of stuff. So I had to search a little bit more.
Right on, man. So I'm curious. I want to kind of go back to where you're living now in Mexico. What's the big difference between America and what's going on there? And I mean more specifically, I always hear, especially with jazz, when you go outside of America and you go to a different culture, there's a level of embracing that's a lot different than the America that we're in. What is that like?
I think that's true in general, and I don't know why. I don't know why it is. I mean, I think about it all the time, and I live it, and I experience it when we go back and play in the U.S. But there is, I don't know if it's a fascination or I don't know. People are more interested in jazz and in improvised, or at least music that kind of lean on improvisation and use elements of that sort of like exploration and these sorts of experimentation. I think those are, people are more interested in that outside of the U.S. And I honestly, I don't know why that is, but I could say definitely in Mexico. First time that I played in Mexico City, we played at the Zinco Jazz Club, a cool jazz club in downtown Mexico City. It's in this basement, it's all bank. They have like these big vault doors and this cool, like, you know, jazzy vibe. And the first time I played there, I couldn't believe it because I've been playing jazz gigs in the U.S. for a long time and other types of gigs too, but specifically in jazz gigs. And I was used to kind of sort of, I don't know, lukewarm reception or just sort of kind of stiff sort of thing. And at Zinco, at this Mexico City gig, people were like yelling, you know, in between songs. There was like multiple encores. There was this real warm sort of spirit where, again, it felt like something more important than just like going out and seeing a show and that was it. And I was like, there was a real communal sort of spirit there. And I was like, well, you know, I fell in love with that immediately. I was like, that's the dream for me, us being able to share our music, that people really get, you know, excited and embrace it. So, yeah, I honestly, I wish I had a more concrete answer on why it is in the U.S. That there is less interest in jazz or at least different kinds of music. But
no, that's a good answer, man. In fact, what I kind of want to tap more into that communal environment that you're talking about. You're on the Royal Potato Family label, and there's a lot of heavy hitters on there. You got Jacob Fred, you got Allison Miller. What is it like to be on that label with such creative forces?
Well, it's great. You know, there's a guy there, Kevin Calabro, who runs the label, and he's just a real, you know, he's an amazing guy. I mean, he loves music, and that's what it takes now, I think, for anybody running a label or anything in music. Now, unless it's really commercial music, there's no reason to do music anymore unless you love it. You know, you have to love it because it's not a big money maker. It's not, you're not going to get famous or whatever. I don't know, whatever you're looking for except for music, you're generally not going to find it. So Kevin's amazing. He loves music. He's liked something, what I did, and I think he likes it. You know, I'm committed to just being out doing it, and we share that love for music. So it's amazing what he's done with that label. Continues to grow, and there's new artists, you know, in jazz and singer-songwriter, and I love that he embraces all these different genres. And yeah, it's cool. It's great to be a part of.
You know, you're in Mexico. You're from the United States. You traveled Central America, Western Europe, Argentina, Peru. What does travel do to you? How does it affect the way that you write music, make music, and deliver it as you get wiser and more journeyed on your music, John?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely, it's just that it's having your perspective challenged, you know, and then open, you know, if you're willing to sort of negotiate with yourself what you've learned and then what you're observing and kind of open up a little bit. I've had incredible, you know, experiences. I mean, you mentioned Peru. We were in Peru, and some of these kind of, you know, we'd take a few days after the tour, and I went to this village. I just found these people. I went to this village in the Amazon in Peru, and I lived there for a few days. And I mean, these sorts of experiences, you know, like in this village, one day there was nothing to eat. There was no food. It's a sad aside, but it's like to have that kind of experience, it's just like the humanity starts to, I don't know, I think you get, you know, softened a little bit, or you come back to your sort of your heart and how we're connected as humans and sort of altruism in a sense. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been an amazing experience for me, and I've found that even though we've done like festivals and some things that I always dreamed of, played with people that I always dreamed of growing up, some of these experiences, really human experiences with different communities, different cultures, has really been what's the most rewarding and I think memorable to me in these years I've been fortunate enough to tour and travel.
Right on. So as you're obviously a solo performer, but you're with the Love Electric. Give me an idea of how this band came together and kind of your evolutionary history into today.
Yeah, well, we did. I mean, when I moved to Mexico, when I moved to the South Baja, in Mexico, I was really tired of like performing. You know, it's a classic story. I was being on the road. I was tired of playing all these gigs. I was tired of being in bars. I was health-wise and so on. I was not in a good spot. So I got to Mexico and I started teaching, and working with the kids really helped me sort of actually rediscover why I was making music, what was special about music. And I started to kind of get my bearings again, I think, to, you know, find some hope again. And I met this drummer. I started to tour a little bit in Mexico on my projects, some smaller things. And then I met this drummer, Hernan Hedge. She's an amazing drummer, also an amazing guy. He's from Argentina, that's been in Mexico for like 20 years now. He has just a very smart guy, really beautiful person, amazing artist and musician, and we started to just work together, not only play together, but work and talk, and he helped me through some things, and then we started making music, and the music coming from that sort of relationship of friendship and not just like, let's make a band, really, I think, brought me back to a place where I could, I felt like I needed to share this music, and I could trust people that I was band with. So yeah, we started playing only instrumental music. Now I'm using the voice now, so it falls a little more into rock categories and some music I grew up listening to. Yeah, it's been a really cool experience for me.
And as you said, yeah, there is more rock leanings, but it's a real mix of jazz and rock and experimental. Do you think in your approach with this band that you're pushing jazz the way Miles did? He went from straight ahead to electric and never really liked the term jazz, but there was always this bend for him to kind of further the craft. Do you feel like that's kind of your goal, or do you feel like you're just amalgamating all these music loves into one thing that you dig?
Yeah, I mean, maybe more the second. I mean, it's definitely, maybe where I'm at in music. As a musician, I'm not trying to make a statement as much as it is realizing that we just have to honor ourselves and the music that we want to make. I mean, this is starting to use the voice again, and it sort of became about naturally we're backstage at this show in Spain, and I respect they're singing songs, and the bass player, our own crews, looked at me and said, "Man, we should do that." Okay, and then there's this kind of this battle with me where it's like, wait, we're a jazz band, and we're playing at a jazz festival. Am I allowed to sing a song? And then it's like, man, yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to make this music and share this music, and it's part of the voice of the band that we have to share. So you kind of have to stop worrying about where it falls genre-wise, although it does present some difficulties of like where you fit, in terms of booking stuff. But whatever, you kind of leave that by the wayside and you just make the music that you have to make.
Absolutely. So I'm going to kind of segue into kind of the teaching angle of things here. And my first question is, you went to Berkeley, one of the top music schools, not only in the country but in the world. What teacher's advice still kind of goes around in your head that you think on a regular basis and kind of is helpful to you?
A lot of it, I mean, I definitely had great teachers at school, but I think, at that point, I think I was really just testing different concepts and different tools, Then a guy that definitely, one of the first kind of heroes I was able to play with was Stephen Bernstein, trumpet player and Psychmonde, and he played Levon Helm too, and the Lounge Lizards, all these amazing bands. And being able to be around Stephen, and also his personality, the way that he kind of grows out these wise, just one-liners. I took a ton from Stephen Bernstein. He'd say stuff to me like, never play too much. I was like, okay, that seems very simple, but that's very heavy, man, and like he was saying it in reference to how long the set is, but it could be a solo, or it could be anything, it could be in composition, and then just things that he would tell me not to do on the guitar too. He's like, don't do that funky thing, It's like this kind of cliche funk thing that a lot of guitarists do, or the 9-chord, and I was like, okay, So I don't know, playing with Bernstein, I learned a ton, because he's not afraid to just kind of, in a loving way, tell you what he thinks and what might help you.
Right on. What is your philosophy as a teacher? How do you approach your students?
What I try to do, and I think my role as a musician, where my talent might lie, is trying to inspire someone to really embrace their voice, and find what they have to express. And then the technical stuff leave to somebody who's, more rigid and more kind of disciplined in that side of things. So I really try to find who the person is, or who the student is, and what they might have to say, give them some tools and give them some inspiration and some context. So much of now when we study music, I think it's like, it is about tools and it's about technique, and which is fine and necessary, but it's like, what are we going to use that for? What are we going to say with our music, or what effect do we hope to have? Are we're trying to better people's lives, bring people together, or are we just trying to get is it cathartic for us? All these different intentions with why we make music. We're all valid and great, but I think if we have that little more clear in our head. It allows us to approach it, with more clarity.
So you've mentioned a lot of musicians that have swayed you, the Monk, Hendrix, the Grateful Dead. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see a gig from an act, where would you go and who would you see?
It'd probably be, I think the Thelonious Monk would be, that would be the dream, to watch Monk play. Maybe Monk solo piano, above all, would be an absolute dream. I think also like an early Bob Dylan gig would be amazing, or like Rolling Thunder Review Bob Dylan gig would be heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you love all kinds of different music, and but since we're a jazz show, I want to ask you this more specifically. Why do you love jazz? Why did it hook you, and why has that been a part of what you do?
I think when I discovered jazz, for me, it's music in general, and where I started as a musician is all about expression, being able to express myself. And in jazz, there's a depth and a wealth of concepts and tools that I didn't find in any other genre. That need more colors to express more feelings. That I had more perspective. But there's like a completeness to jazz that I didn't find in any other genre or kind of world of music. And just the spirit of jazz to explore. It's very human. That's something that I think we maybe have forgotten a lot of. To explore and experiment and go as far as we can. Jazz is very beautiful and very human that way.
So you performed in a lot of places all over the world. What has been one of the nicest things that either a fan or a fellow musician has said to you?
We've had a couple people cry, which sounds terrible, but that's like I've had that experience listening to music, so that's a good one. There was actually something recently in Germany, and the German people, I love playing in Germany, and it's amazing, but they're very, I'm generalizing about a culture here. People, it often happens there where people are very literal in how they tell you they experience music, Sometimes they can be like, yeah, I liked it better when you played something or whatever, It can be very, there was a German guy, this recent tour that, he's like, man, I think I felt a tear during that song. Very, deadpan with me, told me that. And I could tell it really affected him, and that he had to tell me that. He came up to me after he had to tell me that. I could feel that he had some sort of experience listening to music that he hadn't had elsewhere, and that's just, that's, I think, all we can ask for. And I know how that feels, and that's why I started to play music. So to be able to be on the other side of it is really it. That's it, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Everybody has their perception of who you are, your family, your friends, those that are in the crowd, the business people. But personally, when you wake up and you think about what makes you motivated and makes you go, who do you think you are?
Oh, that's I don't know. I think with music, it's like an obsession, but it's something I can't stop doing, that I just need to do. So in terms of motivation, with music, it's something that I do, even when I try not to, honestly. When I don't bring a guitar, when I try to take a vacation for a few days, I end up writing something and doing something. So there's something about it, I don't know, that I'm just, when you're in love with somebody, you can't help it. I'm just in love with it. I keep doing it. So yeah, I don't know. I think every year goes by, I get a little more clarity on maybe what I'm doing.
Sure.
But it really, for me, is just right now based on kind of impulse and what intrigues me. If I want to make more rock record or something that's jazz, or we want to try to tour in such and such part of the world. A lot of it's really just impulsive.
It's a great way to live. Hey, thank you for taking some time out for me today, man. I appreciate it. It's been great to get your story, and I love your music, so I appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks a lot for thinking of me, man, and thanks for having me. I'm happy to be part of your show.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, Mexico, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Todd for his time, his music, and his stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.